Hello everyone, welcome back to another MrEncyclopedia math tutorial, where today we're going to be starting the geometry section, where today I'm going to introduce all about triangles. And although today is just an introduction, there will be later videos on specifically on trigonometry, where sine, cosine, and tangent will be discussed, and as well as there will be a video on congruent triangles and similar triangles. So stay tuned for those, but for now, let's get started. Hello guys, and welcome back to another MrEncyclopedia math tutorial video, where today we're, like I told before, going to start our geometry section. So we're starting off all about triangles, and I feel that it's a very basic shape, and it's a very nice shape to start off with because it is the most basic polygon. A polygon is essentially just any shape that has pretty much straight lines for sides, and all the sides are connected, and there's no overlap, and there is no rounded sides. And so basically this, well, obviously that's not a good drawing, but as you can pretty much see, an hexagon is a polygon, for instance. A pentagon is a polygon, and the main reason is because they have straight sides, and they're not rounded. They are pretty much almost perfect, and the perfect polygons that are exactly perfect in every sort of side length, they're called regular polygons, and the other ones are called irregular polygons, but they're basically all just polygons, and that's what matters most, at least in this series, for you to understand. So now, when talking about triangles especially, there are some things that we need to denote and define with triangles. First, all triangles have 180-degree side lengths, and the reason why is because there's a formula to prove it. Here, if you draw a basic triangle, let's say this side, this side, and this side. If we make it an equilateral triangle or equiangular triangle, which we'll talk about later, these are basically all going to be equal if I denote it with the same amount of lines. And therefore, if the total is 180 degrees, and since the three angles, 180 divided by 3, each one would be 60 degrees, and you would also apply to the other three angles. And the reason why the sum is 180 is because there's a formula for all the polygons to find the angle sum, and that is n minus 2 times 180, meaning 180 degrees. So basically this formula is very important to remember because it can help you find any polygon, not just a triangle. So the n stands for the number of sides of each polygon, and it depends on the polygon that you're using. So basically, in this case, if you take a triangle, if you want to check n, we can substitute over 3 minus 2 times 180 degrees, and obviously that comes down to be equal to 1 times 180 degrees, which simply is just 180 degrees. And that's why the total angle sum of any triangle is going to be 180 degrees, like we defined over here. Okay, that's just one of it. And a triangle will always have three sides, which is pretty much important. As you've probably seen triangles, they all just have three sides, and they have three angles. Okay, so those are pretty much the basic characteristics. We'll talk about types of triangles later on, but for a basic understanding of triangles, this is pretty much what you just need to know. However, now we're gonna make it a bit more complicated and talk about, like, triangle designs, so I'm pretty much adequate of, like, drawing triangles. So when you draw a basic triangle, let's just zoom out of here and go to another spot. Okay, so when you draw a basic triangle, you want to ensure that you're drawing it properly. there are ways that we can draw triangles, and it's really important to ensure that we're doing it properly because we want people to understand what we're drawing. Especially when you take geometry as a class, it becomes very important. So obviously that's a small triangle, and it's gonna make it a bit bigger. Okay, so that's a good size. So like I told before, there are similar lines, and these lines are important because they depict if the angles of all the three angles are similar to each other or not. So if I draw this, right, usually in triangles you'll see curves among each angle. So if I draw this, that means this angle, since it has two lines and the other two have one, basically it's saying that this angle is different than the other two. It doesn't have to mean that it is greater, because although there are more lines, it just means that they're different. It's a way to denote that they're different angles, especially in problems where they do not give you the angles and ask you to find the sum of the angles. And we'll be doing some problems like that. But here, another thing I wanted you to know is that in this case, there is a theorem that basically says that the angle corresponds to the opposite side. So this angle corresponds to this opposite side. This angle corresponds to this opposite side. And, well, what does that mean? Essentially, it's saying that this side and this side are similar, and this side is different because this different angle corresponds to this bottom side. So, let me draw like a cleaner same triangle. It's not to scale, but same triangle. Now, we draw these bars. And you would be like, well, what is the point of doing this? Well, just like I told you about how the curves symbolize the angles, these bars symbolize the sides. So since we found out that these two sides are the same because the opposite angles are same, these two sides are depicted with the same amount of bars. And since this side is the opposite of the different angle, the two-lined angle, we're depicting that side with 2 bars. So essentially you draw them all in one triangle, but just to show you, to not make it more complicated, it's the same triangle, but I'm just showing you the sides and the angles, which is, well, very important. Okay, so now we have got the solid understanding of that, and there is some trigonometry that specifically relies on triangles. It's geometry of triangles, which I'll be more delving into in another video because it is very important to learn as a separate topic under triangle. It's still under triangles because it deals with triangles, but there's sines, cosines, tangents. I'm sure you've all heard of them, but to understand them deeper, we need to know about the secrets of trigonometry. So I'm not going to just jam them up in this video, so stay tuned for another one in the triangle section of our geometry playlist. Okay, so now we've gone over the important parts. Now it's time to talk about those specific angles. So let me just go to a different section. Okay, so now let's talk about the different angles. This angle, this is just angles, by the way. It applies to all polygons, but I'm going to connect them with triangles later on. But this angle, well, if an angle is less than 90 degrees, which is a right angle, if an angle is less than a right angle, then it's called acute. And basically, yep, forgive me for my writing, kind of hard to handwrite on the computer, but it's called an acute angle, and I'll just define it if it's less than 90 degrees. Okay, so now the 90-degree angle, which is the right angle. Obviously, I'm pretty sure all of you know this, but it's important to revise these basic angles so that we can know what we deal with when we work with triangles. Okay, and then obtuse obviously is greater than 90. And another thing, there are sometimes called zero angles where you may see angles that are just, there's no shit in it, like it's not even it's not even an angle, basically 0 degrees, so it can't be an angle. But it's also important to note that it's going to be less than 90 degrees, but I'm also going to say that it's going to be greater than 0 degrees, just for reference. Right angle is just 90 degrees, and obtuse, we're going to talk about straight angles after. So obtuse is going to be greater than 90 degrees, obviously, because it's greater than a right angle. But it's also less than 180 degrees, which is the degree of the straight angle, which will come up right now. So let me just put the angles here. Important to put them. Straight angle basically has, well, that's bad. Straight angle basically has a semicircle like that, and that's called a straight angle. And a straight angle is basically just 180 degrees, and this is, well, one of the final angles, or the final angle that we'll talk about right now. But just so you know, this is very important to the understanding of triangles. But straight angles you're not really going to see. Okay, I'm just going to be explicit with you. You're not really going to see straight angles. But the other three angles are really common, especially when regarding with right angles, because the right angle is what we do in trigonometry. So stay tuned for that. Like I told you, the trigonometry episode will come out later as a separate video. But for now, this is enough to know. And let's do some basic problems what we see. Okay, so let me move a bit more here. Okay, so here in this triangle, well, what does it look like to you? It almost looks like the angles are equal to each other, and like I told you, this is called an equiangular triangle. And since the opposite angles correspond with their opposite sides, basically it's saying that all sides are the same too. So it's equiangular and equilateral. So that's what we call a triangle that is basically almost, yes, it is perfect. It's a regular polygon triangle. And it is very easy to calculate the angles. So if you see a problem that says this is like this, so if you see a problem that basically has the same bars, so remember the same bars meaning the same side lengths. So you don't need to know the side lengths, you just need to know that they're similar to each other, or just exact same. Okay, and so here we're gonna, let me say 60 degrees, or I don't even need to state 60 degrees, that's how obvious this is. So if you just have this, and then the problem asks you, well, what is the angle sum, and well, that would be 180 degrees for any triangle, but what is each angle equal to? So please don't be confused, don't say that you cannot subtract. You need to have let's say two angles that they give you, so you can subtract their sum from 180 degrees to find the last angle sum. Please don't say that. Basically, since it is equilateral, which means it's also equiangular, all the angles are the same, so essentially it's just saying 3 and same angle, so A is equivalent to the total angle sum for any triangle, which is going to be 180 degrees. So A, which is 80 divided by 3, is going to be 60 degrees, so each angle is going to be 60 degrees, which is applied to any regular triangle, equiangular, equilateral. Okay, so that's pretty much the triangle basics that I wanted to cover, and there will be another video about the sine, cosine, tangent regarding trigonometry, but also in another video I want to show congruent and similar triangles and talk a bit about them, because they're also very important when comparing triangles, which you'll probably be asked to do in school or in any geometry class. So stay tuned, but thank you for watching for now. Thank you.